Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with American Vineyard Magazine, reporting to you here today with Michael Miiller from the California Association of Winegrape Growers, an organization that does a lot of good for not only the wine grape industry, but all of California agriculture. I wanted to talk with you today particularly about ag worker housing. Getting the labor you need is a hard enough issue as it is in California. With all the laws and regulations that we have, but what makes things even more difficult is when they don't have an affordable place to live. Especially in a place like Napa Valley, where people have a hard enough time, dealing with the living costs there. Having ag workers, housed on the farm. Can you tell us about some of the struggles that farmers are dealing with, and being able to provide for their employees to meet their needs, but also what CAWG's doing to make things better?
Sure. So there's a lot of challenges. There are a lot of challenges to building ag worker housing. You've got permitting issues, which is very, very subjective at the local level sometimes, where NIMBYs will say, I don't want ag worker housing in my area, and they will object to it and go to the state or the board of supervisors or whoever and make a claim that we don't want ag worker housing here. And that kind of subjective analysis creates long delays in building ag worker housing. And in many cases, you've got a grower who's willing to take out, whatever acres of vineyard to put in housing for the employees, and they can't get the permits done. I know a grower who's got a pallet sitting at the port in West Sac with everything ready to build the housing and can't get the permit done, can't get it done in time. And those kinds of things are really unfortunate when you're looking at a workforce that in many cases they have an hour and a half commute to get to work and to get home because they can't afford to live in the area where they're working. And that's where, this is not just unique to Sonoma and Napa and those areas, but it's also Central Coast. It's, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. It's a problem. And so we have growers who want to do the right thing and help to build the housing for their employees. So what we're trying to do here in Sacramento, that the legislatures, we want to take an existing program called the Build by Right program, right? So it basically assumes that if you have the property and you're building housing on that property, that you can build there by right. You have a right to build there. And that as long as it meets the permitting requirements, not subjective permitting, but not subjective, but actually objective permitting requirements, meaning zoning, access, those kinds of things. As long as it meets all those requirements, you should be able to build there. Right now, that law excludes ag land. So what we want to do is to say, what if we said that exclusion of ag land doesn't apply if you're building ag worker housing. So specifically, you're building housing for ag workers. You're not building a mansion, you're not building an elaborate something, rather you're building essential housing for ag workers. We think that should be an accelerated process. And we're not weighing in one way or the other about, is it seasonal workers, is it guest workers, is it permanent, whatever. We don't really care, because basically the workforce right now doesn't have enough housing, and that's the entire workforce. So we want to get that done to meet the needs of our workers.
So that's something CAWG is working on, specifically pressing some legislators on. When can we expect some resolution or updates on this?
Right now, where we are, we want to pursue legislation in 2024 to deal with this, because it's a problem. When we look at housing issues in California, it's more than the homeless situation, which is huge. It's a big problem. And it's more than affordable housing, which is also a big problem. It's workforce housing, which is very critical, critically deficient in California. We need to do something about that. So our goal is to pursue legislation in 2024. We want to work with all the stakeholders. We want to work with the labor unions. We want to work with environmental groups. We want to work with everybody who's got an interest in this, obviously including our ag partners. Wine grapes aren't the only commodity that's dealing with this problem. There's a shortage of housing across the board for all of ag workers. So our goal is to get something done this year.
Well, thank you so much for your efforts. We look forward to hearing more about this in the near future. Read more about these things in our publications. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.